يا إخوتي ماذا نقول أم حزننا جلب البكاء لصحبة أهل المحبة والإخاء. يا إخوتي ماذا نقول أم حزننا جلب البكاء.
We can see that Islam is the fastest growing religion. Many people are flocking to Islam. But what is the result of this flocking? People coming and just leaving Islam without even to know. The Prophet ﷺ said, he said, do the good deeds before the darkest day, where a man will wake up Muslim and will go to sleep kafir, and will go to sleep Muslim and will wake up kafir, and he will sell his deen by anywhere of the dunya. We see people selling their deen for some worldly matter, even selling their deen through following their own desires. People are coming out the fold of Islam without even to know. Furthermore, about this influx and this deflux, the Prophet ﷺ said, a day will come where the nations will gather around my ummah, like the people gather around a buffet table, i.e. the UN Council, the United Nations, the United Snakes of America, the UK, all France, Germany gather around the nation, the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they eat from the Muslim lands like people eat from a buffet table. The companions couldn't understand this. They said, Ya Rasulullah, who will be small in number at this time? Prophet ﷺ said, La. He said, you'll be great in number. And why did the companions ask this question? Because at the time, they were only small in number themselves. And they were fighting people huge in number with far advanced weaponry than they had. And they had limited weaponry, but it was swiping the flow of them. Prophet ﷺ said, no, you'll be large in number, but you'll be like the froth of the ocean. What is the froth of the ocean, if not useless? And he went on to say, and you will have wahan. The companion said, Ya Rasulullah, what is wahan? He said, love for this dunya and fear of death. Today, we see Muslims, they got love for the dunya and fear of losing a bit of money, fear of losing their freedom, fear of losing popularity, fear of not fitting in. Forget fear of death, forget death, I'm not looking to die for this thing. So we see, the deen is not just something you say, but really, it's something you believe in, something you live by, and something you sacrifice for. We believe in it via Tawheed, we live by it by the Sharia, and we sacrifice for it by the Dawah and the Jihad. But unfortunately today, many people say, I'm on my deen, I'm on my deen, I'm on my deen. And what does it mean? Okay, you're praying now, you're fasting. This is only the ritual acts, brothers. If you're only engaged in the ritual acts and not the other acts, then no, by way of default, something other than Islam, something other than the Sharia is going to be governing your life. How you buy and sell, how you interact with the opposite sex, how you interact with the non-Muslims, how you interact with the Muslims. It's not going to be governed by the Sharia, because your version of Islam is just ritual acts. And for the Muslim women, you want to dress like who? Cheryl Cole, Victoria Beckham, or whoever the latest harlot is. Have you not seen the destruction of these people's lives? Have you not seen? When will you wake up? What is the difference between you and a prostitute? You're making a man judge you on what? On what he sees. Not on who you are, not in your character, what he sees of you. A man goes into a brothel and he chooses what he wants based on looks. You walk down the street and a man will approach you on based on what he sees, not on what he knows of you. He'll dishonour you and then move on to the next one. Chew you up and spit you out, as they say. Even when you look at someone like this Cheryl Cole, she's had a nervous breakdown. Why? Because there's no happiness, no self-contentment in this lifestyle. So anyone who is looking at so-called successful people and want to be like them, know that there's no success, no happiness in this. Preserve your honor, preserve your dignity. Seek izzah, honor, happiness in Islam. In relation to the Muslim youth, the young men all these accessories you have can all be stripped away from you. But Islam can never be stripped away from you. So why are you selling your deen for these things? Furthermore, not can be, all these things will be stripped away from you. Because every soul will taste death. And when you enter the grave, what is all these things going to do for you? What's the cars going to do for you? What's the street sign going to do for you? The new Era hat, the Nike, what is it all going to do for you? It's going to be of no benefit to you. You're going to be asked in the grave, who is your Lord? What is your Lord? Your Lord is anything you put before, your Lord is what you put before all else. So if you put these things before your Lord, you're going to go, what was your deen? What was your way of life? If your way of life was anything other than Islam, your way of life was the 50 cent lifestyle, that was your deen, you lived by it, you believed in it, you lived by it, you sacrificed for it, you're going to go, while the angels are crushing your ribs together. And who was this man sent to you? Who was this man you follow? If you follow 50 Cent or Jay-Z or Eminem or whoever the latest fool is, the latest monkey, you're going to say, and your ribs will be crushed. Do not fear this. And bear in mind, but at the same time you're losing the limbs and the eyes that Allah has given you to disobey Him. Muslim brothers and sisters are being raped and killed around the world, and you'll be accounted for this on the Day of Judgment. While you are using your eyes for sin and your legs for sin, your brothers and sisters are suffering, and you'll be accounted and asked about what you did on the Day of Qiyamah. And if you did nothing, that's bad enough. But if you spend your time, your limbs, your eyes doing haram, la ilaha illallah. Furthermore, even on a state level, we see Muslim populated countries seeking Izzah and honour in what? The UN, the US, the UK, in democracy. And what is it bringing for them? Big humiliation, big shame on their faces. Why? Because they're seeking honour, they're seeking Izzah in a matter, in a deen, in a way of life, in a system, in a methodology other than that of Islam. And we see people who seek the Izzah in Islam, when they roar, the kings, the queens, the presidents, the prime ministers lend their ear and listen to what they say. But on the other hand, when the prime minister or the so-called president of Kuwait or the king of Saudi, when they speak, who cares? Nobody cares, because of humiliation upon their face. So seek Izzah, seek honour in no other way other than Islam. And for you be the honour in this life and also in the hereafter. Also bear in mind about these people who I've mentioned. Allah says they're like the animals. And then the animals, upon this ayah, the animals said, Ya Allah, how are they like us when we submit to you? Then Allah says, La. He says, no, they are worse than the animals. So how dare you follow something that is even worse than the animals? And Allah's giving you akhl. Allah's blessed you to be born into a household with the concept of Islam. Whether or not your parents were practicing Islam to its totality or not, you knew about Islam. But you want to seek Izzah and honour following people who are worse than animals? La ilaha illallah. Now, a lot of the youth who may be Muslim, even, they think, but it's not that easy. And the reason why it's not that easy is because you don't know who Allah is. And I'll give you an analogy of this. If you didn't know the age you are now, whoever's listening, if the age you are now, if your mother came to you and said, I'm your mother, you never seen her before, she said, I'm your mother, go to the shop, buy me some milk, come back and make me a cup of tea. You'd be like, okay, even if she did present you with the DNA results, why she's your mother and you acknowledge that, what's going to make you want to obey her? What's going to make you want to please her? You don't know her, what's she done for you? And even if you did go to the shop and buy her the milk, you wouldn't know how she likes her tea anyway, or what milk she wants. So in the same way, if you don't know about Allah, when you hear the commands to do and the commands not to do, it doesn't mean anything to you. You acknowledge Allah, yeah, I acknowledge Allah, yeah, okay, Allah, but it doesn't mean anything. Unless you learn about Allah, His names, His attributes. That's when you obviously aim to please Him. You will hear a command to do, and you will do. You will hear a command not to do, and you will not do. In the same way, how we love our mothers, because we know that they breastfed us, they looked after us when we was ill, etc., 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 cared for us, took us to school on our first day. When our mother says, go to the shop and buy me some milk and make me a cup of tea, you jump to it because you know exactly what milk to buy, you know exactly how she likes her tea. So the same when you know about Allah, His names and attributes, and you know you hear a command to do, a command not to do, you jump to please Allah. And it even brings to mind Aisha, may be pleased with her. She said about the companions of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best people, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ever taught the face of the earth after the prophets were his companions. Aisha said about them, if the first commandments revealed were the commands to do and not to do, then the companions would never obeyed. But what were the first commands? First ayats of what? Knowledge about Allah, His names, His attributes, His reward and His punishment. So when the companions heard a command to do and not to do, they jumped at it because they knew about Allah. To the point that what? In Mecca, in Medina, when alcohol was prohibited. Forget about alcohol culture in the West today, in America and in the UK. Obviously there are many alcoholics. But back then, they had a dependency on alcohol which couldn't even match the dependency on alcohol today. They didn't know about the fact that alcohol was bad for your liver and kidneys, etc. They just say, I'm going to drink this, it makes me feel good, I'm going to keep it going. Yeah? They had a dependency upon alcohol. But when the command that alcohol is now prohibited and displeasing to Allah and there's a punishment attached to it, they did what? Some of them were emptying their glasses. Some of them were spitting the alcohol out of their mouths. And others were even inducing themselves to vomit. Why is this? Because they knew about Allah, His names, His attributes. When you know about Allah, His names, His attributes, His powers, what He's able to do, it will bring you closer to Allah and you know about Him. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has 100 names minus one. Whoever learns them, believes in them, and acts upon them will enter paradise. One of Allah's names is the Protector. So when you know and have firm belief in this attribute of Allah, who would you fear? One of Allah's names and attributes is the Provider. When you know this, why would you want to sell drugs? Why would you want to go through some haram means to support yourself? Furthermore, even not to address the youth, to the elders. When you know that Allah is the Provider, why would you open a shop and sell munkar, sell alcohol? It's not the Provider. When you know this, you will act upon it. When you've got belief in this, you will act upon it. Likewise, there are another 97 names just like this. And when you come to know of them, it brings you closer to Allah.